Allegedly, the bookkeeper was told by the tenant to lie about specific things. The first thing was to lie to me about living in the property. Her and the caregiver who passed away were dating. They were living in the room downstairs, and they were both told that under no circumstances was I to know that they were living in the property, which is strange because the lease allows her to have caregivers living in the home. So it wasn't a matter of she would get in trouble and it would end her tenancy. She has a legitimate disability. She is allowed caregivers to live in the home as employees, not as tenants. The only reason to not tell me would be because she didn't want them having my contact information. She didn't want me to be able to connect the dots with what she's doing. But guess what? I've connected the dots anyway. The bookkeeper was not only told to lie about that, but she was also told to forge documents that stated that this was a sober home. If you remember, the caregiver who passed away went to several neighbors to report that he had to escape the property, that there were substances being used on the property. It was supposed to be a sober living, that he felt like he was being purposely tricked by somebody in the home. And I scoured the internet looking for any signs that this was a registered sober living. Turns out it's not that it was a registered sober living. The bookkeeper clarified. She said he was on probation. Part of his probation is that he has to live in the home where everybody agrees to be sober. So they were all supposed to sign forms stating that they were sober. There's no substances being used in the property. Caregiver passed away. So what does the tenant do? The tenant asks her, while she's in the hospital, to sign his name on the form. Of course, she said, no, I'm not doing that, and I'm not lying to authorities. This may have coincided with her being let go, and I'm trying to double check to see if her conversation with the tenant coincides with the text messages that I received stating, oh, we had no idea that she was living in the home, she was hiding her stuff, like she's being fired, she lied to us. I'm going to put those messages in the subscription. They're redacted. At the time, I couldn't understand why the tenant was freaking out about this woman who was clearly a caregiver living in the property. But now that I know that the bookkeeper was asked to lie and to forge documents, allegedly, it makes a lot more sense.